So you know you want to run a marathon, and there's plenty of information out there about marathon training and the marathon itself, but what do you do beforehand? It's really important to go into marathon training as prepared as you can be to start that plan on day one. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm sharing 5 things that you should be doing before you start your marathon training plan. So when I am starting with runners to coach them, before we actually start the coaching cycle for a particular marathon that they're training for, they always want to know what they should be doing beforehand so they can be prepared. And it's really important. So I love that they're asking this question. So I am sharing with you today exactly what I share with them. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one being you want to pick your race, kind of a duh. But the big part is you want to pick your race far in advance. So this is a problem that I see a lot, is that people have already chosen their race, then they are wanting to get a marathon training plan immediately, and the race is only maybe 10 weeks out or 14 weeks out. And that's just not enough time to prepare for a marathon unless you are extremely experienced and you have an incredible base going in which case is still not really enough time. So as a beginner with your first marathon, it's really important that you start looking at races that are way far out, at least 20 weeks, I would say, which gives you enough time to prep and get your bearings beforehand and go into it ready to roll. Because there's a very good chance that you don't have the base yet to start a proper training plan. So like right now, we're in the end of January, maybe you're looking at a fall marathon. That's gonna give you plenty of time to prepare beforehand. So some things that you wanna look at when you are choosing a race, because they're not all created equal. So take the time to research and look for things like, what is the elevation in terms of what's the starting elevation and what's the elevation change. So seeing something like a few hundred feet of elevation gain in an entire marathon, that's pretty flat. If you're getting up over 800, 1,000, that's a lot of elevation gain for a marathon, and probably not the one you want to choose for your first marathon. You also want to look at the average number of participants. Are you looking for a small race? Are you looking for a big race? That's going to make a big difference. You want to look at the average temperature on the day of when it is scheduled for. If it's really in a hot area, or it's very possible it could be, that's probably not the one you want. You also want to look at time cutoffs. There's some races where the time cutoff is 5 hours, and if you're not to a certain point by 5 hours, or maybe even the finish line, then you're not going to get to finish the race. If you are someone who knows, you're going to be taking a little bit longer than that, or it's pushing it, look for one that's at least 6 hours or 7 hours. So all of that's really, really important. A great place to go for information is a website called findmymarathon.com. It's a website I use a lot just to kind of get the nitty gritty, some of these things with the questions answered for you, instead of hunting it down on the websites itself. All right, so number 2 is building that base. This is probably the most important thing that you need to do before you start your marathon training plan, because you're gonna see that even the most basic marathon training plans, such as like a Hal Higdon Novice 1, they're having you coming in having done some running. You shouldn't be just starting that plan as if it were a couch to marathon. So really, even beginner marathon training plans assume that you have some sort of a running background and you're coming in with some sort of a base. So when you are looking for that training plan, it's super important too to look at those very first couple weeks and see if you are going to be prepared to enter in that plan with the base that you have. So when I'm saying build that base, I mean today, right now, don't wait. The bigger base you have when you start that marathon training plan, the more prepared you're going to be, and the better training experience you're going to have, and the better race you're going to have. Not really sure how to build that base? I recommend you check out my video about a marathon training plan that I put together. Not only do you get the free download for the beginner marathon training plan, but I also have a base building phase 10 weeks built in there as well. They're basically 2 separate plans so that you can make sure you are focusing on building a good base, and then you even have a possible beginner marathon training plan that is backed by evidence-based principles and the way that I coach my runners as well. So definitely go check that out as a possibility. All right, number 3, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't even think about, is becoming disciplined. So when you are marathon training, having discipline is really important. So people always assume that because I run marathons a lot and I consistently run, that I am super motivated to go run all the time. And that is just not the case. I am just extremely disciplined in what I do. I know how important it is for reaching my goals, and so I continue to run day after day. I consistently run 6 days a week, that one day off, no matter what. So if I set that alarm and I told myself I'm gonna run, I get up and I do it. So the problem with going into marathon training, not having that discipline already, it just can get really, really taxing and overwhelming. So now is the time to build that discipline, because it's probably not gonna be easy those first several weeks. That's okay. Maybe you miss a run here, miss a run there, but over those several weeks during that base building phase, you're going to get into a routine and you're going to have the discipline that you need when day one starts of that marathon training plan. All right, number 4 is strengthening your weak spot. So this is sort of a blanket statement for several different areas that you could be strengthening. So the first one that we usually think about is strengthening our actual muscle groups within our bodies, those ligaments, those tendons, those joints that you are going to be asking a lot from when you are marathon training. So right now would be the perfect time to start doing some strength training if you're not already, and having it be focused on strength training for runners. So I actually have a video that specifically does body weight exercises for runners. This is an excellent place to start if you are not used to throwing weight around just yet. If you already have a routine going, perhaps you use an app or something like that, you just want to be focusing on some of the exercises that are more geared toward runners. Things like strengthening your hamstrings and your glutes and your quads, and obviously just your legs all around, right? Because that's what you're going to be using. So now is the time to get in a strength program, because it is extremely hard to start implementing a new strength training program as you're starting marathon training. It just gets really overwhelming. Plus there's a possibility of hurting yourself because you're just doing too much too soon. Next is strengthening your mind. I think we just don't think about this, but you have to understand that marathon training is asking a lot of you, and it can get really, really tough from day to day, especially if there's no one else around you who's doing the same thing as you. And so now is the time to get your mind right. So you want to start telling yourself positive things. So those positive affirmations, you want to have mantras that you say to yourself that you know you're going to be telling yourself in your head when it gets hard or when you want to stop. Now is the time to write those down and figure that out. Pinpointing your why. Why are you doing this? Why is it important to you? All of that is really important when you're going into marathon training, so that you can take it all the way to the start line and all the way to the finish line as well. The next one could be your running form. Perhaps you don't know if you have good running form or not. This could be a great time to take a visit to the physical therapist. It could just be maybe a one-time visit to have them kind of look at your running form, talk about some preventative things that you could be doing just to make sure that you are staying healthy during that base building phase, as well as when that marathon training starts as well and the mileage starts building. And it's always recommended that you visit a doctor before you start any sort of new exercise program. So it's certainly a great time to make a doctor visit and just check off that yes, you are healthy and ready to go. So those first 4 are the ones that I am telling the runners who I am starting coaching. We already know that we're going to be working together, or they already have a training plan that's being put together by me. And these are the things that I am telling them. This 5th one is a little bit different, because you might be in a situation where you don't have a training plan yet, or you don't have a coach yet. And so now is the time to nail one down, because a lot of people will have their marathon signed up way in advance, which is awesome. That's what I recommended, right? But they don't really know how they're going to go about the training. So during this time, giving yourself plenty of time to research the training plans that are out there, really asking yourself what's important to you, how many days a week are you going to be running, what's your week looking like, how much time are you going to be able to have to devote to it, is the training plan put together with sound advice by your running coach. All of those things you want to take time to delve into without just pulling one out of the air, not knowing where it came from, and just saying, okay, this one looks pretty or this one looks good, I will do this one. So I have another video where I talk about 5 really great training plans for beginners. They are put together by experts, and I would recommend that you check that out to see if one of those might be a right fit for you. I also have my beginner training plan that I talked about, so I will share that video and that link in case you want to download that one and see if that one would be a good fit for you. And lastly, if you're just still feeling very overwhelmed by the process and you're not even sure where to start, you're not sure what questions to ask, or you have a million questions and you don't have the answers, then coaching might be something that you want to look into. Coaches are for everyone. I think a lot of people think coaches are only for elites or people who are wanting to improve their running times, but I work with runners of all levels. So if you're interested in coaching services, I will put that link below. I would be more than happy to help you on your journey to reach your goals. It's what I do. It's my passion, and I'm very open to talking to you to find out if we might be a good fit working together. All right, guys, so now you have plenty to think about before you even start that first day of marathon training, but I promise if you put in the time to do all of these things beforehand, you're gonna feel so much more prepared when your marathon training plan starts, and it's just overall going to be the best experience you could possibly have. And that is what I want for you, because marathons just can be absolutely amazing as long as you approach them in the right way.